I feel like I'm on the wrong beat. I don't know. That's important. You got to check yourself sometimes.
Did you say you felt like you were on the wrong beat?
I did. I felt like it was skipping. You got to wait a second. You got to kind of catch it so you can stay on beat.
I feel like I've been like that all week. Like, that
Mm,
is a really good metaphor, really, since our last podcast. Like,
yeah.
yeah, let's do our intro and then let's jump in and talk about why we're a little offbeat.
Ooh, okay, ladies, welcome to our show. Welcome to Women Connected in Wisdom, a podcast grounded in the 8 dimensions of wellness. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial business owner, the owner and operator of Shalo Glow LLC, an all natural handmade shea butter company. I am an advocate for your personal care, business care, and intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all, I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, and published author who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Yes, and I took your part from this right at the beginning. So, um, again, ladies, we are with women connected in wisdom, grounded in the 8 dimensions of wellness. And today we will be talking about intellectual wellness. Are you ready?
Right?
Ooh,
Um, talking about being offbeat, I had really pretty much from last week, from our last podcast, that was when we had the shootings in Atlanta. And then just having those shootings in Denver, I have just been so out of whack. How
yeah.
are you doing with everything?
I mean, we talked about this, right? And I feel like, if I'm transparent, a lot of this stuff goes on another layer of my, how do I say it? My processing. It has to, right? It doesn't always hit the what I need to be able to focus every single day. Um, and that's because it happens so much. Honestly, is we talk about International Women's Day, but women, this is for the record, Women's History Month is all month. We have a whole month of women in history. And it's not just a day, and it's very interesting to find a day in the month because then it makes you think that the other one isn't happening. Um, but unfortunately, for me, it's just like something happening in Black History Month at the very beginning of Black History Month when we're supposed to be celebrating. That's how it feels. And women getting shot is like at work, at a place. And we talked about it, how a lot of those women were relaxing. And a year after COVID, we've been talking about how to cope, how to be intentionally well. And these women were trying to be intentionally well. And I say it's crazy to think that it cost them their life. I'm trying to find a better phrase than it's crazy, but that's how I phrase all of this stuff. Like, it's crazy.
Right?
It's just
It
crazy.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not unbelievable anymore in the United States because of how much gun
Right.
violence we have really close to home. I'm in Gwinnett County, and we have the
Mm.
largest population of South Koreans out of South Korea. Um, and one of the moms that was killed was the mother of two sons who went to school with my children. And
Wow.
yeah, and then less than a week later, the Boulder grocery store shooting, which was my
Right.
sister's grocery store when she lived there. She's
Mhm.
since moved, but really way too close for comfort. I mean, it's so
Right.
devastating. It's just devastating, I think. And it is, to me, I think, Shannon, like, there's so much hope and possibility right now with people getting their vaccines, with people getting ready to get back out there. And we're also hit with this, but I guess it's all the time, right? That we have grief and
Yeah.
gratitude. I mean, we talk about this often. Like, it's a yes and, right? It's
Right.
but I know that, yeah, I felt offbeat for a little bit. I'm like, all
Hmm.
right. And I know that's what we talk about wellness. Like, it's not just the we don't spiritually bypass it. It's not like, oh
Right.
yeah, go get a massage and that's going to fix racism, and like we know that's not true, right? It's like
Right.
having these conversations about how do we be well in the midst of this nonsense, you know?
Right. And I love what we're talking about today because, again, we're talking about intellectual wellness. And actually, let's go ahead and start from the definition. Okay,
Yeah.
so intellectual wellness refers to the active participation in scholastic, cultural, and community activities. It is important to gain and maintain intellectual wellness because it expands knowledge and skills in order to live a stimulating, successful life. In order to improve intellectual wellness, it is important to value creativity, curiosity, and lifelong learning. And this definition is from the University of Illinois. One thing that I love that I was learning with intellectual wellness, all of this is very important, right? It definitely gives a better picture than just your IQ or academic learning like we usually think about. But something else that I learned while I was researching it is your ability to learn from situations, right? So your book, the Still Point, the playbook for caregivers, talks about post-traumatic growth and how instead of post-traumatic stress, we can grow from situations. And when I think about the shooting with these Asian women and this gentleman being able to say that he had a bad day is infuriating because we have horrible, like people have horrible days. It's bad days every day out here. And
Mm.
so if that's where you go when you're upset, intellectual wellness is something that I would challenge you to look into because it helps you get through situations that are difficult. It helps you think about different perspectives and what you can do to respond in a healthy way.
Right?
That's what I would tell
Excited
anyone
about
thinking
our
about my
guest today
intellectual.
because yeah, I'm excited about our guest today because she I think she embodies this intellectual wellness when we introduce her to folks. And we're going to get to that in a few minutes, but I wanted to circle back around on that definition because
Yeah.
some of the things, when we've talked about it before, you know, some of the ways to know are you engaged in the process of intellectual wellness is, are you open
Mhm.
to new ideas? You
Yeah.
know, I know you, my friend, to be completely open to new ideas.
Yes, it's important.
Right? Another way to know if you're engaged in the process of intellectual wellness is, do you seek personal growth by learning new skills? So I think I asked you this last time we were on this topic, but what book are you currently reading? Because you're always
Oh my
reading a
goodness.
book and always engaged in learning new skills.
Yes. So let's go through a few, right? I'm definitely reading Still Point, one of my new favorite books. I absolutely love it. And it's helped me give a, a deeper level of verbiage to things that I didn't know how to articulate. So thank you very much. So I love Still Point, right? I just got done listening to The Truth About Men by, I believe his name is Reverend Devin Franklin. This is Megan Good's husband. It was great. It was great. And I love learning about the other gender to better help the men in my life, my partner, business partners, or whatever it is. So that was great. And what else am I reading right now? I need to finish Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, which has been great, and I need to finish 168 hours, the time management stuff that we've been talking about. But all of those have been really good for my personal development.
Right? I haven't been reading as much. Well, I read fiction all the time. Just that's my escape. But like when I've been taking a lot of online classes for my learning and for development. So I
Okay.
just I finished up that class we talked about in the last podcast about organization and decluttering, and then I found this new thing. I had no idea this existed. It's a place where you can buy storage in the cloud for like your
Mhm.
all your pictures and memories, and you can organize all those things. Like it's a whole nother, I was thinking about you today because I took a
Yeah.
class on it, Shannon. It's called forever.com. And
Mhm.
whoa, their organization skills are just top. Now, I was like, my friend Shannon Mitchell would love this so much because
Really.
you have albums, best albums underneath it, and I was like, oh. So I was learning a new skill about organizing pictures today. Another thing that you can, if you're engaged in the process of intellectual wellness, is do you search for learning opportunities and stimulating mental activities? And do you look for ways to use creativity? So, yeah, I have to say, I would say every woman in my life is engaged in the process of intellectual wellness.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. It's really important who you're around. And I will also say for our listeners who, let's say you're beating yourself up, right? Because you're like, I haven't been working on any of this stuff. I also feel like we're conditioned not to do this. You know, the way that a lot of people feel about learning, oh, I wasn't a good student. And so after school is over, people stop learning. And that's been one of the biggest lessons that I learned from the restaurant is you're always a student and you're always a teacher. So if you don't know anything or you don't know specific things, now we have the internet. There's more than enough resources, and we're going to bring a great resource on for our guests today. I'm so excited to get plugged in so that we can work on new ideas and personal growth for different situations that we know are going to happen because stuff happens all the time.
Right. And I just want to say, even if it's not a book, even if it's
Yeah.
not like you got a YouTube video, like that's learning and creativity. I mean, that's my go-to now. If I don't know how to do something, I'm going to Google it on YouTube and go, how to do da 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 da. And I would also, the whole piece about being creative, right? I think sometimes we think, oh, if we aren't a Vincent van Gogh and have a masterpiece, we're not an artist, which is not true. Like the creativity piece of, coloring to color or painting to paint or, arranging leaves in your backyard to make a living piece of art. There's so many ways to be creative and to just, do beauty. Our next guest sent us both. It's not in her bio, but she sent us both beautiful calendars that she had created with her photography, which we share that in common. We both I'm going to have to ask her how many photos she has on her phone. Mine's a little ridiculous when I was looking at this story. Like, what about I don't consider myself a hoarder except when it comes to photos and emails. And it's like, oh, yeah, there's a limit to storage sometimes. But are you ready to bring on our guest, my friend? Are you ready for the conversation? All right. Yes, so I'm going to introduce Rosalyn Kahn. Professor Rosalyn Kahn teaches public speaking and has taught interpersonal communication. She earned a master's degree in speech communication from let me make sure I read that right, from Cal State Northridge, and earned her bachelor's degree from the University of California, Santa Barbara. So she's on the West Coast while we're East Coast. She has a dual degree in sociology with an emphasis in speech communication. In graduate school, she traveled to Belgium and presented a paper on the 5 stages of downsizing, looking at Kubler-Ross on death and dying in a labor conference. Oh my gosh, that's fascinating. I want to ask her more about that. As a result of that conference, she has a paper that was published in a journal. She did a book signing in Rome, Italy for her last book, Random Acts of Kindness Are Changing the World, which, boy, we need more of that today, don't we? Outside of academia, she's a professional speaker and spoke at TEDx. And she is presented on stage with Emmy-winning filmmaker, taught about forgiveness as a result of her book on random acts of kindness. Her signature talk is Breaking Cultural Differences. She also has a program called Reach Out versus Strikeout, targeted to stopping school violence. Her second book, she's got numerous books, I love authors, is Dogs and Roses, Reducing Stress and Anxiety in Today's Troubled Times. She enjoys photography, nature, and swimming. And she also has a brand new book out that we're going to talk about. But I'm going to bring her to the stage so we can chat some more. Come on in here, Rosalyn. Welcome.
Hi, Rosalyn. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. We are so excited to be talking with you today. Like, this is really good timing.
Well, it's a pleasure and honor to speak to both of you as well. You were talking about that incident that happened in Colorado. And as I began my class today, We talked about gratitude. I read a piece out of my book on Message for Tomorrow's Leaders, and it was really touching because the person was an 88-year-old lady who's talking about the unexpected, the unknown, and being ready for life is always changing. And as I said, we're going to take 10 seconds out, just 10 seconds out. And I asked them to reflect on this life. I said, to me, it doesn't matter the color of the skin. It doesn't matter where you come from or what you're all about. We all matter in this world. And what it really brings to the forefront, and I want everyone listening to the show to remember, is we don't know when it's our time. We truly don't know when our last day is. Are you going to spend this one worrying that you didn't clean the house, clean the dishes, that you didn't call the grandma or go out and exercise, or this person made you mad or that person made you mad? I think if all of us made the effort to make every day count, and, don't get me wrong, I broke down and cried yesterday. I said, this is the first time in the whole pandemic I've ever shed a tear, and realized that life isn't a constant uphill. It's got some of those downhills. And if we don't take the good with the bad, then we don't have life as it is. And so my readings for today and my 2 books I read is recognizing those gratitude that I could be here with the 2 of you and hear how close it was in your world, and know how Colorado is so close to me, and everybody knows somebody. I was in a group called Up With People that traveled around the world, and there was an incident that went down, and a lady was going, it's okay, it's all right. And I remember the first event in Columbine, and being there in a classroom and saying that same message, and it just lets us know that every day is precious. And as a dear friend of mine, David Levi Harrison, wrote on a Facebook page, it takes 2.4 seconds to say hello to someone, and how short our life is. And so I said hi to 26 different people in that group, and I said hello, 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 and remembering just how important that is. And sorry to get sidetracked, but I just had to put in my 2 cents and let you know. And so if you go to my Facebook page, you'll see a post about, how Asian lives matter and how they're so important, and everyone's life matters, and always trying to bring kindness and love to the world. So I'll turn it back to you.
No, thank you, Rosalyn. And yes, to taking that deep breath and giving gratitude, and so did you just say 2.4 seconds to say hi to somebody?
Yeah, just 2.4 seconds.
Well, we can tell you're West Coast because we're from the South. I think it probably is going to take us at least 5 seconds, but we'll.
Well, there's nothing like that Southern hospitality,
right?
But brings us all back.
I am so grateful for that reminder. Right? Because I know I get caught up. A lot of times I'm busy, I'm working, or I'm, and I'm a texter. Like everybody that knows me, I am so much better at texting than calling. But my friends are really good at calling me back too. Like I'll text them with a question and they'll go, well, hey, good morning. How are you? So that reminder of the humanness of it all, and to be grateful for that. And I think this year in the pandemic, it's been a little tricky with that because we're virtual, which thank goodness we are. We get to have a conversation with you live while you're in California and we're here. But remembering that we're 3D bodies in a 2D world, and that we all bring different life experiences, different emotions, different isms, all of it that comes with us every day, every conversation, and how crucial that is.
No, it really is. I mean, I always say, You can feel a heart through a computer. And, as you shared how close that last incident was to a friend of your family, and how this one was someone who went to your kid's school, and your sister who used to live there said that was my store, that was my go-to place. It gets closer and closer. And when are we going to take out the time to realize how valuable today is, and say those important messages today to those ones who are really important? And so if we all make an effort to call one person and just say, thank you for being part of my life, that may be the last time.
I think about
And
that.
I think
Go, Shannon.
I was I was gonna say I think that's so important to keep front of mind, right? But I also think that there's a balance to it. And with everybody having it more front of mind for quarantine, I think now when I think about intellectual wellness is okay, so how do I remember to tell my loved ones that I love them and how important they are to me, right? But also, before I move on, and also to be realistic and sit in the events that take place. But next is what about the new ideas? Where are we going, right? If this is how we've been culturally, or if this is how we've been socially or intellectually for so long, this is what we're talking about, how to move from one place to another. Because before it was easy to stay disconnected and, oh, I have work and my child has this practice and we're running all over the place. But I think it's really asking people to start better communication habits. It's not that you're the only one bad at names, it's that everybody's pretty bad at names and calling people back. So what do you, especially you, right? Especially you, Rosalind, with your experience in intercommunication and studying language and studying culture and how all those things intersect, was
Excuse
my
me.
question that I had for you. How would you say that all of that interpersonal communication throughout the different cultures affects intellectual wellness?
Well, I think, and I'll just go through a number of different associations that I'm in, that it's so important to have people from different places and to listen to their voices and hear their experiences. I was in a
Mm-hmm.
one group that I belong to is Coach Masters, and most people come from the same background. And I said, wouldn't it be kind of nice if we got together with this group of people, because different corners of the world. And I think that if you speak to someone from a different language, and a student argued with me like that, it's a chance to travel to another world. To hear that experience was a conversation I had in my classroom, and my student wanted me to fight about it. And I was in a BNI group, and I was looking at the colors of the rainbow from all around the world, and thinking how rich and how wonderful that is. And I'm in a global society of female executives, and they have people from all corners of the world. And it's seeing how we're all together. I'm going to take a lesson out of religious studies, and I'm not going to ask you what your religion is, but I remember going to a Vipassana meditation, and they said, this isn't a religious experience. We take people from all walks of life and all places around the world, and all of them are welcome here, because what we're simply trying to do is bring ourselves to a place where we can look inside of ourselves. So what's really important. And I think about the Kiwanis Club that I just got off the phone with, and was listening to their mantra of, they don't ask what race, what background, what religion that you are. Do you care about people? About people as who they are. And I'm getting this side thought in my mind. I used to live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I remember a girlfriend that I had, and I remember being out on her porch one day, and I don't know what caused it, but she said, do we ever think that we're raise a kid who's going to go up and be a bank robber? Do you ever think that's a parent's thought? And when these tragedies go and happen, this is where I'm one of those people who always ask the question. I always ask, if a student isn't around, where are you? What's going on? I haven't seen you for a while. He mentions that he's a military guy. You should call the health services. And I call the health service. You're going to talk to this guy, and this guy's going to be giving you a call, and you see him in class, and you just say, "Did you get my email?" And then he says, "Thanks." Because all of these situations, people give signs. They give out signals. But how many of us are awake to see what those signals are? In my life experience, I've saved people from suicide by just asking those questions and being there, of noticing, something is different. And, I remember one situation in particular, and there's always people who say, mind your own business. It's not your problem, it's their problem. And when you enroll in my class, you're part of my family. It's the Rosalyn family. Many services say they're the family. And I remember one day she came into my office and she said that she was having some issues or whatever and kind of struggling. And one day I had this thought that it was a speaking class, and she always missed her speeches, and always, this was another one, and this was another one, and this was another one. And when she was finally supposed to be there, and it was one more time she wasn't there, our intuition talks to us, but do we listen to our intuition? And I remember calling the health center, and they said, "Do you really think it's important that we call the police and break into the house?" And I said, "Yes." And when she sent me an email, she was in the hospital and her hands were strapped down.
Mm.
She thanked me.
Yeah.
And I remember the department chair who told me previously to mind my own business came back around and said, that was pretty amazing. And it's we all have the intuition. Do we listen to what's on the other side? And I promise and assure you that both of these individuals who went out there were signs.
Yeah.
There were,
and we also know that we're also in a system. I mean,
we're all in a system. And there was a student who gave a speech about, what race is up and what race is down and who's in and who's out. And it goes all over the place. It's, but there's another world, and that's just one of the worlds where you talk about intercultural and what that brings. And we always need to be sensitive that everybody comes from a place, and what happened in your home growing up and what happened in your home growing up and what happened in my home growing up are different. But if we can look at these and learn and take a piece and make it a part of me. And Christine's on the verge of saying something.
Well, what I'm thinking about is I'm thinking about this third book that you just came out with, and about learning, and about, I want you to tell our listeners a little bit about this and what this new book is all about, and how it fits in to this discussion about intellectual wisdom and wellness.
Well, thank you so much. The new book came as part of academia. I work in academia, and the Academic Senate had put out a request on how do we maintain minorities in the school system? What can we do can we keep them in? And so I said, what if we went out and I invited all these people from all these different places and invited them to come into my classroom. And I got the first one in, who was a coach. His name was Coach Knock. It was an inner city high school. And he just truly resonated. And I just kept collecting these stories. And I brought people from all different walks of life, from people who were beauty queens to people who talked about drug addiction to a 12-year-old humanitarian who just gave over $3,000 to kids, to an 88-year-old woman whose story I read today, who's called the Pink Lady, who interviews tap dancers and so on and so forth. And everyone from car mechanics to doctors of wellness to stunt writers to people who work with just amazing people in the world. It's just incredible. And the stories answered 3 questions, and you guys are invited to be in the new edition of the next one, and I'm sure you'll agree. We're asked 3 questions. It was, number 1, what are your thoughts about the pandemic? Number 2, what are your thoughts about the protests? What about the riots? What career advice do you have to keep people in tune to education? And that was just the beginning, and the stories were absolutely amazing. We're going to do something funny here. Give me a number between 1 and 102, and I'm going to read you a story. I'm going to read you one of the stories in here.
Shannon,
Okay.
you give her a
72.
number.
72.
Wow, I think that was almost the one that my students said today. It's interesting. I've read this story several times. This is one of my dearest friends. Her name is Songwriting Shane. Songwriting Shane is a Grammy award-winning artist. She's a multi-award-winning singer-songwriter. She's a retired New Jersey State Police officer, and she was the international team leader of CISM, the 9/11 ground response team in New York City, an activist in LA communities. And she has a message that says, "Unite all hearts for peace." And she writes, "Growing up, I was taught there was only one God and one world. I was taught to respect all people. I learned there are people who feel entitled in all walks of life, both rich and poor, but that didn't make it right. In school, I learned of the trials our forefathers went through to unite our states in the name of brotherly love, freedom, and to bring about one nation under God, to always be indivisible with liberty and justice for all. I was taught to be responsible, respectful, hardworking, and thankful for all things. I still thank God for all things and pray for those who need help and healing. That means all people. What I saw during my lifetime was sometimes quite the opposite of what I was taught in school, and it often saddened me. I saw division, control, and discrimination by people who deemed themselves privileged or abused by their life situation. My generation was taught at home and in school to help others and not discriminate. My generation followed the direction of our forefathers before us, and we continue to fight for the rights of all people being abused by an unjust system led by abusive leaders, bosses, and spouses. My generation died in wars and cried out, "Give peace a chance." Many of my generation became victims of abuse by those who were taught to blame entire races, nationalities, or religions for their own sad situations or bad choices. We all have suffered enough. We've all suffered through this discrimination and abuse running rampant throughout the years. And yet those of us still alive from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s generations hold on with faith and knowledge as we slowly watch our country and so many other countries falling apart due to the greed and hatred of man. And no one listens. It's 2020. I am thankful to be properly raised and educated with respect and love for others without prejudice, and my country is still one nation under God. That contract, our Constitution, was signed, sealed, and delivered. And I thank our forefathers for their death-defying mission to achieve that goal for the betterment of life and brotherly love for the good of all. My opinion on the pandemic: power and greed cause havoc and war in all nations. Germ warfare, chemical warfare, psychological warfare, monetary warfare are all words of those who devise evil towards others. I believe they will be dealt with when they meet their Maker. That in almost every Bible around the world. My advice? Stay in school. That is your saving grace. And the key to sanity and discernment during these crises. War never brings peace. Hatred never brings unity. Discrimination doesn't solve anything. There are good and bad people in all walks of life. Most people around the world want peace and freedom and justice like most of us. The opinion on the protest, fighting and yelling to deaf ears isn't the answer. Act intelligently, especially now. Safety is a priority. We need good police protection. We need good unity and respect of all people. Otherwise, we continue to create more victims by our own demise. What I learned at school and at home remains the same. I'll share an educational principle of life and inner strength with you. Every one of us knows we are here on earth for a short time. No one is in control of that or anything for that matter. We are all given allotted time to do the best we can with our lives. So be creative, helpful, and loving towards one another, and be thankful for the world and life around you. Peaceful and intelligently demand respect for God and our country as was so ordained. Demand honesty with zero tolerance in government. Demand good education. Demand justice to those individuals violating our rights. And demand good police protection. Please, in the name of love, unite all hearts for peace. And that was songwriting Shane. She and I were in a group that was called Arts for Peace. And sadly, there was another lady who stole the name of that project, and it was her song. And you know, Shane moved out here to California to follow a dream to get this recording recorded. Hollywood is filled with good and bad people, and I remember one sad day when she was ready to pack her bags and go up because of someone who misabused her trust. And on another day in another place, I was a different person, and we were at an event, and I pissed her off, and she closed me out of her life. But see, friends know people who are really good people. And so when I asked her to make this contribution for my book, and I've kept in contact with her over the pandemic, and one of those friends I can just go and hang out, and we both have a huge love of dog. It shows you what's real in life. And I tell you the goods and the bads and the ups and the downs. Because if you go to my Amazon page and you look at this book, I sent this book out to all the contributors. And one of the couple people who gladly posted on my Amazon page is Songwriting Shane. And you can see and hear what she says, because she is a blessed person on this world of earth, and I give so much gratitude to her. And there we have it.
Thank you for reading that, Rosalyn.
Thank you so much for sharing.
I'm curious to read all those stories because I know that they are different voices. So I know they will have different life experiences and different, different perspectives that they bring. And we may not agree with all of them, but yes to listening and hearing what that is. So, Shannon, do you have a question for Rosalyn?
No, I think that was beautiful. Like Christine said, sometimes the positions are different, but I love the idea of peace and being accountable as individuals, that how we operate and remembering to respect each other. And like you say, Rosalind, we don't know when our time is. So what do you want your life to look like? Is it really that important that you stay mad for 15 years, or is it better for your health to let go?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's so much of that. So much.
Yeah.
Well, before we brought you on, Rosalind, we were talking about the definition of intellectual wellness, and creativity is a part of that. And I know that you are a creative human being because you have 3 books that you've written, and your photography. Are those your main creative outlets, or do you have other creative outlets that you like to dabble in?
Well, I I'm a speaker. I speak on stages. I speak on podcasts. I've done, 30 plus. I have a show that, if you go to my Instagram, you can see it. It's called Community of Unity, Rosalyn Kahn. Um, and I think if the world has creativity, it's just become refined and expanded in this world. And I invite anybody who listens to this podcast to follow me on Instagram and look at the posts that I did over the first part of the pandemic, and you will see my creativity gone wild. I dabbled into one of my other books, which is going to be called Food, Flowers, and My Furry Friends on How I Survived the Pandemic. And you can see the ingredients of what I had done. And if you have any pictures or anything that you want to go ahead and share, I'd love them. And I got into working with food and flowers and just going out and, as you said, collecting leaves and making a beautiful thing. And for a while, it was fun and excitement. And then I ran out of stuffed animals, and then I stopped going ahead and creating those. And I was in a somber way, and I was like, well, what am I going to do next? And I started this thing yesterday. Yesterday was the first post, and it was how to speak on Zoom. I did my first entry up there, and there'll have to be another one today. And it's doing live Zoom conversations that goes up to YouTube on how we can speak better and do better in that. So if you want some tips on how to make that happen, I'm still learning. So there is always creativity, but from a very young age, I was writing poetry, and I've always turned to writing as a source. But in this pandemic, I was making all sorts of food and different creativity things. And as a cousin of mine said, at the beginning of pandemic, everybody wanted to share food, and nobody so much wants that food anymore. They're worried about the pandemic 5, instead of the freshman 5, it's the pandemic 5. Of how we take that. And so she says she now brings wine. Here's something that no one can go ahead and deny, unless of course you're a non-wine drinker. And as a friend of mine who thinks that we don't have enough food in our house, always has food that he's dropping off over here, had 2 boxes of donuts, and I said no. And he said, there's a Krispy Kreme in the refrigerator, and I can let that Krispy Kreme go.
Well, speaking of gifts from friends, I know that you have a gift that you'd like to offer our listeners. Do you want to tell folks about that gift?
Oh, certainly. I always like to leave people in different parts of the world a gift from my heart. And so there's a gift, and I know when Christine puts up the link, there's a gift. It's called Be Kind. When you go to my webpage and you put in this particular link, what I'm going to give you is a copy of my first book, which is called Random Acts of Kindness or Change in the World. Mm-hmm. And it's a keeper. It's one of those things, if you're in a bad mood, you just sit and read that, and your heart will be changed. I was once at a health club, and this lady was telling me about this phenomenal book that she and her family talked about around the table. And it was my book.
Oh.
And it was just so touching. And so I want to spread this kindness with more people in the world and bless more people and let them know there's a reason to keep living. And so if you like the show, then please be a recipient of that wonderful gift. And, I'd say follow me on Instagram, follow me on YouTube, subscribe. And every day there's new and exciting stuff that's coming out on how we're changing this world.
Absolutely. I love that. And we'll make sure and put all your info in the show notes, Rosalyn, so people can find you. And I would love for us to close out this section. Like, I love that idea of just random acts of kindness. So instead of thinking about what we've done for somebody else, because I know the three of us on this call do random acts of kindness, but can you think about what was the last random act of kindness that was done for you? And you don't have to name the person that did it. You can if you want to, but what was the last random act of kindness that somebody did for you?
Well, this one really touched me. Those calendars and so forth. And I had someone, I got some feedback, and I had to share them. So I went out and I gave them to all my neighbors. And one person thanked me, and one person came to my door with her daughter on her shoulder, little baby, and brought me this gift of cookies and green tea, and said, I wanted to thank you, Rosalyn, so much for that beautiful calendar that you gave me. I gave it to my grandmother, and she so much enjoys it. And I always say we never know what the smallest things we can do, whose life we can change. And it can be the littlest, smallest thing of opening a door, closing a door, saying thank you, or returning a text message.
Right. I love that, Rosalyn. Shannon, do you have one that comes to mind?
A random act. Which way was the situation that I've done for somebody or that somebody's done for me?
Somebody did for you.
Done for you. Yeah. I received this week in the mail, I received these beautiful cards that somebody sent to me from a class I taught, just out of the blue, that said, I just wanted to thank you for your class. And they just sent me some of their artwork, which y'all know is my love language. So it was so delightful. So you got one, Shannon?
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I would say, and I'll be honest, I was probably gonna discount it because they do it so much. But both my boyfriend and my best friend have been amazing at, and you, Christine, at if I say, oh, I need this for Shaylo Glow or for a wardrobe or whatever, they'll just, okay, well, I'll take care of it. And that's really what it's looked like for me recently, getting the stuff that I need and not having to take care of it myself.
Well, I think that goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the conversation about really listening and seeing each other and hearing each other, right? And giving from our hearts. Like that's, and I think that's, I know we've completely done a left turn, y'all, from intellectual wellness, but I have loved our discussion today. I think it's right on time and right on point. And Rosalyn, we just want to say thank you for being with us today, and we're so grateful for this conversation.
Well, I'm really grateful for the two of you, Christine and Shannon. It's really, truly been a heartfelt moment. I love exactly what you guys do on Women Connected in Wisdom, because women are the change makers of the world. They're the ones out there that are bringing the changes that we need, the changes that we see, and every occupation that's out there. And I think what you're doing is truly incredible. So gratitude beyond words, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, we will definitely see you online. And we'll make sure everything's connected so folks can find your new book and they can download your beautiful gift about random acts of kindness. And so grateful to talk with you.
Thank you.
Whew, that was a big old conversation, my friend.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. We veered a little from intellectual wellness, but I think, what was the thing that stuck out to you the most about that convo?
Ooh, let's see, because I took so many notes. I would say the 2.4 seconds to say hello to someone. We talk about wellness for ourselves and wellness for our community. And I think that for me, that's what it starts with, saying hello. Just like you were, I don't know if you said it on the call or before we got on the live, but you were talking about reaching out to your friends and sometimes forgetting to say hello first. At work, I was definitely that person. Please say hello before you send me on all these errands. And so 2.4 seconds, it changes the whole dynamic of the team. Yeah.
Right? I think that's so true. And I'm going to commit to work on that's going to be my wisdom in action this week because
Ooh,
sometimes I get caught up in that task list and I jump ahead. I'm a leaper and I'm 3 tasks in. And so just taking that deep breath and saying hello and pausing
yes.
for a moment, I think is going to be my wisdom in action this week. What do you think yours is
Hmm.
going to be?
I think, let's see, what do I want mine to be? So I'm gonna say my for intellectual, a new category that I'm learning about is bookkeeping and taxes. It's tax season. We've been talking about that on our mastermind. So I'm gonna put my energy over there and continue to learn new ideas in my financial literacy and my strategies for my tax setup.
Well, that's right on time because next week's show is about financial wellness and it is
Yes,
tax
it is.
season and it is all that goes with it. And we know and support so many female entrepreneurs and women
Mm,
who are in business for themselves or have side hustles. So that is really timely that your wisdom in action is
yes,
going to be around financial wellness. Yeah. And learning about it, the intellectual wellness part. Well,
it's
before we
true.
go, my friend, I want you to tell folks about Shalo Glow as our sponsor and about
Yes,
Shea Rose. Tell our
yes.
listeners about
So again, ladies, Shalo Glow is a handmade shea butter company. We also have multi-use oils and sugar scrub for exfoliation. But right now, I want to talk a little bit more about the shea row, right? We talked about the 44 interviews that Rosalyn has done in her newest book. Clearly, Christine and I are always talking about our ladies, our Manifestation Mondays masterminds, and the different groups that we're connected in. And today, talking about remembering to say thank you to people in your life, to say hi, to say, how are you doing, and to intentionally check on them. That's what the Shero is about. A person in your community that betters your life. She betters the community. She's taking care of everybody else. And this is your gift to her that I'm giving for you, right? To honor her, to give her some self care, to give her a second for herself, to be intentional about taking care of herself, her body, so that she can continue to do all of the things that she's been doing. So, in order to nominate your Shero, the subject line is going to be my Shayro, and email that to me at shayloglow.com. Excuse me, shayloglow@gmail.com. The registration for the nominations is open until the end of the month, and we'll be announcing that at the beginning of April, and then the nominations for the next month will start. So if you have somebody, if you have a few people, that is fine. Nominations have already started coming in, and I'll let you ladies know who gets chosen.
Oh, I love that. I love that gift that you give back to the community and honoring women in our lives. I think that is so beautiful, Shannon. Thank you so much. And I'm just grateful. I am grateful for
Yes,
today's conversation. I know it wasn't an easy one, listeners. So if you stuck it out this long,
yes,
thank you. It's
yes.
and we look forward to chatting with y'all next week, as always.
Yes, yes. And ladies, don't forget to be well, be wise, be whole. We'll see you next week.